After several intense weeks, we finally took Berlin out for its debut track day, but little did we know this day wouldn't go as planned.
The track is Waterford Hills, situated in Clarkston, Michigan. Spanning 1.5 miles, it was paved in 1958 and proudly holds the distinction of being Michigan's first ever paved track. With 8 corners and a unique stretch of elevation, it's a track that can keep you on your toes, and there is limited runoff in many of the corners, so any mistake could be costly. But first, let me catch you up to speed. When I bought this car, it had a leaking steering rack, so I swapped out the rack with a 2015 Plus STI rack with a 13:1 ratio. To go along with the rack, we also upgraded the bushings with white lines, we replaced the OEM bracing with a Cusco brace, and we replaced the OEM linkage with a bushing with a steel STI one. For braking, we decided to run Hawk DTC60s on the front with HP Plus on the rear, and we paired those pads with centric blank rotors. We also swapped out the stock brake fluid with Motul RBF 600 to withstand the higher boiling points. The car got a fresh oil change with Motul 300V 5W40 Motorsports oil, and lastly, we upgraded the stock radiator with a coil rad to provide better cooling, or at least we thought so. Huge shout out to Import Image Racing for sponsoring this video. We are running a special promo, details down in the description.
Once our group was up, my anxiety and my nerves began to overwhelm me. Just 45 minutes prior, we had our novice drivers meeting, and then we had our full drivers meeting, and I had to absorb a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Right after the drivers meeting, we had our parade laps where we got to familiarize ourselves with the track and find the driving line, and that's when it really just hit me that this was my first time out. My anxiety and my nerves were just through the roof.
Once I pulled out and got lined up, I was thinking if people are still watching this video, it's probably a good time to remind them to subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment down below.
Okay, that's good, that's good. Be safe, have fun.
All right, thank you.
The morning was wet and cold, and the track was still not dry. As I started my first few laps, I had 3 things in mind. 1, take it easy, 2, get a feel for the brakes, and 3, maintain awareness. My goal was to gradually build confidence while driving on the track for the very first time by taking it easy and just getting a sense lap after lap of the track and the car itself. For the brakes, I wanted to get a sense of the bite power of the DTC 60s and gradually brake later and harder. Additionally, I wanted to pay attention to not only the racing line, but also the marshals. However, due to this focus, I was blue flagged going into lap 2 and had to let a Mustang pass me. During the following lap on the long straight, it became really confusing. I was given the point by to pass, but I got stuck in between 2 cars. The second car was going extremely slow on the straight, yet I didn't receive a second point by. Although the track strictly requires a point to pass, I didn't want to panic and significantly slow down on a long, fast straight, so I chose to safely commit to the pass. However, while doing so, I noticed a marshal holding a black flag. I had no idea if I was being flagged or if it was the other car. However, several laps went by without receiving any flags from a marshal, so at that point I assumed everything was fine and gradually pushed harder and harder each lap. Lap after lap, I was pushing harder and braking later. The DTC 60 provided excellent bite and modulation, and they felt consistent. I was really getting into a rhythm, and on lap 7, I recorded my fastest lap time of 1:37.89. Once we got back to the pits, I noticed we were pushing coolant and we were blowing bubbles in the overflow tank.
I was pushing coolant and bubbles into the overflow tank, and I didn't know where it was coming from. I had no idea. It seemed to only be happening when I was under heavy boost. With 3 sessions remaining, I had 2 options. I could pack everything up and go home, or I could send it. And well, yeah, we sent it.
Session 2 began with a slow train led by a Corvette. Although it was frustrating not to be able to complete any decent outlaps, we eventually managed to make the pass despite the blue flag being shown multiple times. As the track opened up, I noticed the Mustang that had overtaken me in the previous session 2 cars ahead. With increased confidence carrying into this session, I knew I was ultimately faster and would end up overtaking him. And that's exactly what happened. Sure enough, I passed anyone that was in front of me by pushing harder and harder with each lap, and I was really starting to find my groove. I tried to maintain my pace, but a Supra was on my tail. I increased my speed, braked harder and later, and accelerated out of turns a little bit more quickly and more smoothly. However, I decided to ultimately let the Supra go ahead and follow their line because they were clearly faster than me. After the pass, my goal was to maintain their pace and stay in line with them. After the session, I realized that by following the Supra and keeping up with them, I was able to set my fastest lap of the day at 128.92. It helped me realize that the car had more pace and I had the ability to find more time. Right from the start, I quickly overtook a blue BMW and gained enough speed to start the lap. The first turn is called Gulch Turn, which is a long, continuous sweeping turn where you maintain a consistent speed as you transition to Bluff Bend. Bluff Bend starts with a slight left and then right, where exiting the bend, you need to get hard on the brakes for the sharpest turn of the track, turn 3. It's important to stay left here on exit so you can hit the apex as you elevate into turn 4, Hilltop Turn. Exiting Hilltop Turn, you immediately drop back down into Pelton Bend where you can go wide open throttle all the way to the fastest turn of the track, Big Bend. There's limited runoff here, so if you go too heavy on the throttle and lose traction, you may find yourself introducing yourself to the back wall. The back straight is where you can really stretch the car's legs and pick up max speed, and then you get hard on the brakes hitting turn 6, Archer's Corner. Directly following turn 6, you encounter turn 7, known as Paddock Curve, which is the second sweeping turn of the track. I often had difficulty finding the correct apex here as it's a little tighter sweep compared to turn 1. The S's are my favorite segment on this track. They really test the car's handling and you can use the curbing to maintain speed. But if you hit it with too much speed, you can spin out here, and I did see a couple cars do that during other sessions. Turn 8 is the last and final turn, known as Swamp Turn, and it consists of 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. It is the third sweeper on the track, and you can maintain speed easily in this turn and exit with wide open throttle, allowing you to finish on the second straight. At this point, I was definitely pushing the limits of these all-season Continental SRS Plus tires. While they aren't designed for track use, they were still able to perform well, especially in the cold. And the Hawk DTC 60s were holding up really well. I maintained a good pace for the rest of the session. Previously, my average lap time was 1:45, but in this session, it improved to 1:35, a difference of 10 seconds. Like I said before, my main goal wasn't to go as fast as possible and try to put down the quickest lap times. It was about building confidence in various aspects of the car, such as throttle modulation, braking, smooth shifting, and maintaining clean racing lines. By midway of the second session, I was having tunnel vision and I was super focused and I was feeling good all the way around.
Well, the coolant issue got worse, and we only made it 2 out of the 4 sessions. Now I gotta figure this out. If you are still watching, check out the Discord link down below and join our community, and you can check out behind the scenes and updates and progress on Berlin. And if you haven't already, subscribe.